Hey, welcome to this week's GuitarLessons.com live lesson, Rock Guitar 101, well, with the Les Pauls, also known as how to tune a guitar over and over again. Let's go.
Oh, man.
Thank you, Angus. Thank you, Free, and all of those influences for that tune.
I like that one. That one's fun. That felt fast. It was good.
Now, it's kind of, Andrew and I haven't played guitar, well, I don't know about Andrew, but probably 4 or 5 days. We've been on a company retreat. It was awesome fun.
Super fun.
But yeah, I was woodshedding last night and this morning for this, just so didn't fall in the face.
Yep. Cool. I don't think you did. It was great. That was good.
We're going to be talking about something that every guitar player can get into, no matter if you just picked up the guitar today or if you've been playing for a while, and maybe this will kind of refine your rock playing a little bit, or maybe make you think about it in a way you haven't before. Just Rock Guitar 101. We're going to be covering mostly rhythm guitar stuff and how to use things that you might already know as a completely beginner to play some really cool rock stuff. We're also going to touch on just a couple of lead guitar things.
Yes, absolutely. So make sure you download the resources for those of you guys watching. And for those of you guys who aren't watching, maybe you too. But there's a PDF of what you're going to be talking about and kind of the teaching portion. Then we have the jam track that we just played over, which is also, for those of you guys who are members, Running Red Lights, I think it's called, is the track. And there's a full course on that you can go through. And if you have any questions as we're going through this, question tab below the video, click on that, send us in questions. It can be rock guitar related, anything else you want.
Cool. I remember when how old was I? Say maybe I was 19, 20, something like that. I went to Guitar Center and bought Paul Gilbert's Terrifying Guitar Trip VHS video cassette. And I remember he was sitting in a pool on a raft and he said, shredding's great and playing lead is great, but sometimes the best stuff is just putting on a simple chord. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that in some ways, you know? So that's what we're going to kind of be focusing on. The first thing we're going to dig into is how to make the open chords that you probably already know as a beginner into a more rock-friendly and rock-appropriate kind of tool for yourself. So we're going to go through these, and let's see what order I have these in, because I do not want Taylor to have to struggle with the graphics on screen. The first one, there's 5 kind of open chords that we're going to use as the basis for these power chords. That's all we were playing as far as the rhythm guitar parts in the beginning of the song, or at least me, the parts I was playing.
Yeah.
And if you know your open A chord, that's our first one, right?
Yep.
Now, the problem with, I wouldn't say the problem, the issue with open chords, major open chords, generally is a lot of times in rock music or in blues music, you don't want to have the third of the chord in there because it can make it sound a little square or hokey or too happy. Not as mean and nasty as you want for rock or blues, right? So what you can do is leave the third out altogether and just play a power chord. And that's what happens a lot in rock music like AC/DC or a lot of classic rock too. So what you want to do for your open A shape, if you already know it, that's great. But this third right here, that C sharp, sounds really happy. So what we can do is just leave it out. And what I usually do is just bar.
And then you're muting. You're muting then that high
Yeah,
string?
I'm muting that B string right there.
Yeah.
Leaving it out. Sometimes I can even catch that high E string. And that just sounds awesome, man. It's the difference between this and this. Just sounds a little meaner, a little more fundamental and basic. But that all it is an A power chord, just like you would play here, or if you're an octave higher, You're just muting, and I do have to kind of kink my finger this way to get it to where it's not fretting the B string, but it's just muting it.
Right.
So watch out for that. Nice big power chord, and you can even get the low E string in there if you want, doesn't really matter. Doesn't always sound great depending on what you're playing, you want to be careful with that. But that's the first of our power chords with our open chords. The second one is an E power chord, I think. Right. Yes, I can see it over there better. So. And you're going to do the exact same thing, have the exact same idea. You have your open E chord, hopefully you know that. If you don't know your open chords, this is a great opportunity. These are really easy to make and just slap on. You just have to use one finger, right? So if you don't know your open chords, don't count yourself out on this. But all you're doing is taking this open E chord. I'm going to switch sounds a little bit. And there's only 1/3 in here. It's a G sharp right here with your index finger.
Okay.
So all you got to do is leave that out. And what I typically do, I do the same thing I do with my A. I just make a bar right here across my A and D strings. Play my low E, A, and D strings. Mute, just let up on that G string enough, like don't push it down, right? You don't want that. And then you could play the B and high E strings too if you want. It's a pretty massive sounding chord.
Oh, huge, yeah.
That's the difference between that and here's the major chord. Let me turn that delay off.
Yeah.
That's
There's a noticeable
bit
difference, though.
Yeah, 100%. And that when you do that, it doesn't lock you into playing like a major pentatonic or a minor pentatonic scale or a major scale or a minor scale. It gives you the freedom to kind of express whatever sounds you want over that chord. Because there's the root and the fifth. It's just like a super stripped down.
Play that chord. Actually, play an A major chord. Play a full A major chord first. Sounds so bad.
Okay, now
Doesn't work.
Bar chord, just a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4.
It works perfect. I could play the majors and it would work the same way.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that leaves you open for that, and that's kind of the basic idea behind rock and roll anyways. All rock music is blues turned up really loud. That's, the fundamental roots of it anyway.
So true,
So the next chord is a little bit different as far as like the common use of it or the common way to think about it. But you can use a regular open D major chord, right?
Right.
You can use the same idea, but there's no bar this time. All there is here's the third of the chord, right, with your second finger on that F sharp on the high E string. All you have to do is take that off. I like to take it off and then mute that high E string with my third finger. So I get a nice power chord. It's the D, G, and B strings. It's just the D, the fifth, A, and then another D. And this one to me sounds good, even if you have this low fifth in here, the A.
Yep.
So you can think about that as it is a power chord. It's just using a D shape and leaving the major quality of that third out. So if you're learning new chords, get to where you can make that bar. You don't even have to. You can use 2 fingers. Use 2 fingers here. Just make sure you mute that neighboring string. And then you can use 2 fingers here. And you can get through AC/DC songs or, you know, some free songs. Free by the band Free, if you don't know who they are.
Yeah.
But just using those simple chords. And it sounds great.
Oh,
It
yeah.
sounds awesome.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
The next two chords, I think C is next, right? Yeah.
Got it.
The next one deviates a little bit from kind of what we've done so far. It's not just a power chord. It's a C add 9 chord, but there is no third in it, just like the other ones we've gone over so far. So if you know your open C major chord, and sometimes we play this voicing for our C major chord, right? C add 9, but our third is in there, so we kind of want to avoid that, so we can use minor pentatonics over, you know, a rock chord progression or blues chord progression. So your index finger right here is where the only third is in this chord. So you leave out the low E string altogether, and then you lift up on your index finger that third, that E, and just mute it. And now you have, so all you have is the root, the fifth, the 9, and the fifth again right there.
Right.
So, sounds really good. That's what AC/DC does all the time. They just leave that third out.
And I should address, I think there might be a little bit of a mistake in the chord chart,
Yeah.
chord diagram. So just make sure you're keeping that in mind. You're looking at what it is and not the fingers that are
Oh,
numbered.
yeah. Like, you could mute it with your second finger. Is that what you're talking about, the X?
It shows 3, and
Yeah.
then 2, and then 3 again.
Oh, okay. So this is 4. Should be 4.
That makes sense.
But I do have it as X'd out. That just means a lot of times people might think that means open or something. It's not open, it's muted. So.
Right.
And that I use that one a lot during that play along. So it was,
Okay.
what was it? The A?
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
So. And that leads me to the last one of these shapes, which is a G, the same exact idea as the C. So make a G chord, and it's the 4-finger version that I use because it eliminates one of the thirds. So if you had a regular G major chord, you have 2 B's in there, which is the third of the chord, which you need to get out of there to make like an open G power chord using this shape. What you do is make the 4-finger version of a G. So that eliminates 1 B, the open B string, and then all you have to do is lift up and mute the B note on the 2nd fret of the A string. So it goes from sounding like this to this.
Oh, yeah. Way more rock
Just
and roll.
really straight, no major or minor quality that's left up to interpretation to whoever's playing the leads or singing the melody.
Right.
So those are the 5 chords that if you're wanting to get into rock guitar, you need to have those down. And of course the E, C, back to the A.
Right.
But that's all I was playing, and some decorations throughout that opening playing along, which I'm going to show you some of the decorations here
Yes.
in a second. 1 second. And the cool thing about, I guess we'll get into it now, the cool thing about these decorations is really easy to get into, doesn't require a lot of strength as far as bending, because they all involve bending.
Yeah.
And I have heard them in every style of rock that I could think of. I was thinking of songs last night. I was like, yep, it's in metal, it's in rock, hard rock, you know, grunge, blues, like oldies, 50s, 60s rock, stuff like that. It's in all that stuff, man. And I was listening to some music today. I forget what it was, but I heard it, this exact style of lick. So we'll start with an A. So if you're just chugging here on an A chord. That is super useful. All you have to do is get to where you can hold those 2 notes down and strum them, preferably with downstrokes in rock usually, because this is some more aggressive sounding. Maybe just some palm muting. I'll show you some more on that later. And all I'm doing is reaching out with my 2nd finger, grabbing the 3rd fret of the A string, which is the 3rd of the chord.
Right.
Which you may be saying, Nate, I thought you were leaving the 3rds of the chords out. Well, I'm just making it ambiguous now, because watch what I do. I go from the lowered 3rd to the C, and I bend up a 1/4 step, which kind of hints at a major 3rd, but not really.
Yeah. Because you're not quite getting there.
What's that?
Because you're not quite
Not quite getting there. Just a
Yeah.
quarter step. Here's the.
Splitting the difference.
But that's one thing. If you can learn how to do that, it's really valuable. You can start coming up with your own riffs and things. You can take it a long way. That's one metal riff from a band that I like, and they use the same. This is like totally something you would hear just in rock or blues or something.
Yeah. Big time. So bluesy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to show you how to do that with 3 different chords: the 1, the 4, and 5 in the key of A blues.
Yep.
So the next one, let's go ahead and do the 5 chord because it's really similar to the 4 chord. So in the key of A major, the 5 is an E. So if you have that E power chord that we went over earlier, same thing. But you have to work on holding that down at the same time and then bending. Just a little bit. And some concerted practice like this over a couple of weeks, just really focusing on that, you'll be able to get that down fairly quickly. Just do that literally. Da, 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 or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be D, right? So
Trying to figure out songs on the fly.
yeah, exactly. So that's, I mean, it's all over the place. Keep an ear out for that in rock music.
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere.
The last little place I wanted to teach you how to do the little bendy thing to make your chords and rhythm parts more interesting is just a D. So if you have your D chord, and what I do here is I make it with my first and second fingers. So a D power chord. And this exact same idea, you're just gonna have that open D string. Same exact thing. So you have, for your D, for your A, you have, for your E, sounds meaner because it's lower, right?
Yeah.
And practice those, just going in between those, and then start making up chord progressions. You can go use it to a 12-bar blues, which is really cool. You can even, let's see.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you want it to be rock. Just put more distortion on it, right? Andrew has some tips for getting rock tones toward the end of the lesson, too.
One other little thing with that little bend that you can do is you can do, I've got a little too much gain here, hold on. You can double up, so you can do
Yeah, you can do it on both strings. Yeah.
So you can double up on some of them too, it sounds cool.
Yep. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to show you guys, if you've never palm muted before, I know I was doing a lot of that with these licks. So when you're palm muting, just take the fleshy part of your hand right here and stick it on your bridge, right where the strings take off of whatever your bridge looks like, the saddle's there. And just experiment with playing, just strumming like you normally would, but having your hand planted there. And you don't want too much, or you're not going to be able to decipher the notes. You don't want too little, or they're just going to ring out too much. So you need to just experiment with how much is too much, how much is too little, and then find right in the middle. That is essential. That's essential to getting a good rock tone, just being able to play rock in general. It's palm muting, then just getting those power chord shapes down, then putting some embellishments on them. That'll lead you into other things as far as using like minor pentatonics and making up your own riffs with your rhythm parts.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool.
exactly. And eventually you would branch out into maybe some other power chord shapes.
Yep.
All over. Yeah.
And that's what you're playing on the plate one.
Exactly. I was just playing instead of playing because that's what surprised me when you showed that. I was like, oh, I figured you were playing what I was playing, but I was doing instead of doing this version, I was doing
Right.
just like
I was
that.
hoping I didn't talk to him about it. I was hoping he would. So it would kind of fill out the space and be complementary parts, fill it up a little bit more.
Yeah,
But it worked out.
exactly. And I love the shape where you bar and then you mute those strings because it's easy to be lazy, and it's good sometimes to be a little bit lazy because if you mute all those strings above it, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have a perfect bar, right? Which I kind of like because you don't even have to think about it. And if you even accidentally mute that string below it, like you can even just hit those 2 strings.
Yeah, that's fine.
You'll be fine. And the same with the E. So they're good shapes. That's what I was using. Yeah.
Now, the last part to this lesson isn't really the focus, but I wanted to give people who want to work on lead guitar something to take away. And you've probably already guessed it. All it is your minor pentatonic skills. You can make money, you can write songs, you can do whatever you want with just these 2 skills. That's why they're so popular on guitar. And you probably already know them. If not, I'm just going to play it very slowly. There's 2 shapes on the PDF for you. One is the 6-1 shape. I call it that because the lowest root note is on the 6th string, the low E string, and you play it with your first finger. So 6-1. Ooh.
I like that.
But and I'm not going to go in detail on this because you can find this anywhere. And members, if you want to go through minor pentatonic scales 1, this is the scale in that course. If you want to go through minor pentatonic scales 2, the 5-1 shape is the one that's in that course. And all it is the exact same idea. Go to the 5th string, and then your index finger is going to be the one playing the root. But the one I'm talking about here is for a more beginner approach, and you're just using the open A string. So 5th string is your lowest root note. You can tell that because it's black, and you can see that it's played open. And even putting that little lick in your, it's going to pay off. It's going to bleed over into your your lead playing, right?
No doubt, yeah.
So, but my point with this, all you have to do is put some emotion in it and put in the work to get the coordination down. That sounds great. You make $1 million on that. Same thing.
Oh yeah.
All I'm doing is going up to the root of that scale. One way I'm sliding, the other way I'm bending. So just take your time.
Oh yeah.
That's $1 million right there, I tell you what.
Almost $1 million.
Well, not for me, for whoever is a good songwriter.
Well, yeah. I mean, B.B. King made a career out of
Yep.
one scale shape, basically. Oh,
I
yeah.
can't do B.B. King vibrato. It's something I've never worked on.
You just gotta do this one, remember? That's all you gotta do. It's the B.B. King lick. Nice. Okay.
That's all I have to say about that.
That's all you have to say about that.
Yeah, so-
A couple things I wanted to talk
Okay,
about
yeah.
just was with getting rock tone and a couple, maybe they're not misconceptions, but maybe they're misconceptions. But one of those things is the amount of gain on your guitar and how important that is, because I think, especially when I started playing rock music, I was like, get myself as much distortion as I possibly can, turn it up to 11 and just go for it. And that's not what you want to do. And a brilliant example that's talked about over and over is Angus Young's tone. If you go and listen to what he plays and you listen how much distortion's on his tone, it's very little. It's just enough. And that's one thing that I would suggest you do, is turn your gain up to a point where you're like, man, this sounds good, and then turn it down a little bit, and then try and get comfortable there. Because it'll clean things up and make things sound a lot better. Now, this isn't the case for every genre all the time, but I know this is the same for like metal guys. It's the same thing. Turn your gain down and get used to it, because there's a big difference. Now, I can't get a ton of gain here, but I'll try and give you an example. So, obviously, this is no gain. There's a tiny
Just the
bit,
amp,
tiny
yeah.
bit, but that's just the amp, right? So, if I put a little bit of gain on it, probably not enough for rock, right? If I do a little bit more, sounds like a rock tone.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'm just gonna turn this off while I do this. If I were to like crank these way up, that just to me is just lost. It's
Yeah,
just
it's starting to get some distortion on the distortion.
yeah. It's just so compressed. And what's going to happen is when you're playing in a band setting or when you're playing along to music and stuff, you actually start to get lost. Too much distortion, and you start to get buried by other instruments. And so it's always good if you want to make sure your parts stand out and sound good in the mix, is just not go too crazy with distortion. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. I'll just turn these back up to where they kind of were supposed to be. It doesn't really matter too much, to be honest, the type of guitar you have. Everyone thinks, oh, you need a Les Paul to play rock. Well, that's not true. People played rock on Strats. One of the Iron Maiden guitar players playing on a Strat. Yeah. And that's I can't think of a single type of guitar. Maybe like a Gibson L5 or like something like
Rickenbacker.
I mean, the Beatles were rock.
Yeah, not like that.
No, I know. So, but just about every single type of guitar, you can get a good rock tone out of it, and it's just going to sound different. Right? And that's kind of the whole point, is like it comes down to them preference and things like that.
One of the best rhythm guitar tones I ever heard, not at a concert, was this lady. I was a guitarist when I was like 15. She comes in and plugs in like a SRV Strat into a Marshall half stack and just crank the crap out of it. I was like, what?
On the bridge
Strat's
pickup?
not supposed to sound like that.
On the bridge
yeah,
pickup?
It was
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and that's another thing I was going to mention is the difference between, quite often when I'm practicing, I like to be on the neck pickup because it sounds really smooth.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice on the ears. But when you're doing rock music, get on that bridge pickup. Really? A lot of rock guitars only have a bridge pickup, actually. Because that's going to sound chunkier and
a little hairier.
Aggressive. Yeah, and hairier, exactly. Let's just see, there's, I think, one other note that I had that I wanted to bring up about rock. Oh yeah, and that is something that you were actually talking about, which was using simple chords, right?
Oh,
which is that you're leaving the third out. And another reason for that is because as you add more distortion and gain, those notes tend to take away more than they add, in my opinion. So like, it's like when you were showing.
Some more decipherable.
Small, tighter, and it allows more room because you're going to be playing with a drummer and a bass player, and it kind of allows the frequency to kind of be spread a little bit nicer.
And you probably know more about this than I do, but when you add distortion to a guitar and play like a note, the harmonics come up, right?
And that's, oh, yeah, thank you for saying that, because what happens is you actually get overtones, harmonic overtones. So what happens is when I'm playing a G note with no distortion, sounds clean. So they're almost not decipherable, but there's tons there. And what there is, they're harmonic overtones, so there are other notes that just are faintly.
Like it could be a fifth above is a really strong.
Totally, totally, exactly. Like it can be, depending on the tubes in an amp and all these different factors, you can hear all these different overtones. And so when you start adding more and more notes, it just, there's those overtones as well, and everything just compiles and it becomes just washed out or too much. And I think that's one of the reasons why power chords have been such a staple for rock guitar, right? Yeah. Even like the two-note power chords. I know I find myself, like I play with another guitar player in my band, and we actually have an acoustic guitar player as well in a lot of songs.
So like
and I find myself a lot of times just playing two-note stuff. It works a lot better. And the last thing that I wanted to mention, because I just remembered, is the importance of downstrokes. And that how a lot of people, when they're taking a look at a rock song and they're thinking, oh, this is a strumming pattern, and let's say the strumming pattern is. But if I play that at downstroke.
Some are coming at you heavy hitting.
Yeah, exactly. Locks in with the drums really well and stuff like that. Anyways, that's
I
all
like
I had
it
to
to Metallica.
Yeah, yeah. Metallica, I know James Hetfield has talked about, he just only downstrokes.
It's aggression, man.
Yeah, like
sure.
that, this lick. It's all downstrokes.
That's crazy, man.
Which is crazy, because I could never do that. I could never do that. Okay, should we jump into questions then?
Yes, please.
Okay. Again, if you guys have any questions, make sure you send them in. Questions tab below the video player. Type in your questions, send it off. And it doesn't have to be about rock guitar. It could be about anything. But rock is what we are talking about mostly. Just put this away.
I'm attuned while you're doing that because I play Les Paul.
Yeah, you referenced that in the beginning, and then we never talked about that. Les Pauls are notorious for going out of tune.
So we both decided to play them today.
It only felt appropriate,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
It did. But holy cow, have I never tuned that much in my entire life. Okay.
This one's pretty good, though. I put locking tuners on this one, and I had the nut replaced and recut, and it helped it a lot. If you have a Les Paul that won't stay in tune, try that.
For those of you guys that have problems with Les Pauls,
Yep.
the main issue, like locking tuners matters a lot, but the nut, and it's what it is it's the angle here is much greater than on like a Strat. That angle wouldn't be quite so much, and because that angle is so much and the nut slots are straight, you have like basically something trying to turn a corner where it's like straight against it, and then it binds up. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
So you can fix it though. You can fix it.
I just thought of another song that does it. It's Podunk, little known band from Austin, Texas.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Really good
yeah,
though.
because I was going to say, I don't think I know that song. Okay, first question here from John Murphy. Nate and Andrew, I have only acoustic guitars. One is a D28.
Ooh.
Nice. With a bit of distance between the strings and fretboard. Can I use these, or do I have to invest in an electric mini? Thanks.
It's up to you, man. I mean, if you don't want to spend a ton of money, if you don't know if you're gonna like electric or whatever, then just go to the pawn shop and buy, a Mexi Strat for $200.
Couple $100,
You can't go wrong with it. If you don't like it, you can probably get as much as you paid for it.
Oh, yeah.
But I play rock on my acoustic guitar all the time.
I would say the techniques 100% apply to acoustic. A
You're
lot
just
of
gonna
those
be
techniques.
Hulk with your left or with your fretting hand.
Exactly, yeah, especially playing on a big dreadnought like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, rock and roll music, you gotta, like, because you're gonna be playing with a drummer and a bass player and a vocalist, you probably need the electric guitar to be a rock guitarist, I guess.
Yeah, if you want to play in a band,
Yeah.
for sure. If not, if you're just playing at home by yourself, that's fine.
And with a guitar like a D28?
It's fun. Yeah, if you got a D28, then I assume you can afford a Mexi Strat.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's a bad assumption.
I would say so, though.
You don't have to spend a ton of money. Do that. Get a little, headphone unit for practice or a little multi-fix for 100
Oh,
or
yeah.
200 bucks. All in, you're $400, $300. You're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and I know Fender sells like those starter packs too. And
Yep.
they're- honestly, you get that guitar set up well,
Yep.
it's gonna be a great little guitar. It comes with a little practice amp and stuff too. It's not gonna feel as nice as your D28.
Yeah, don't expect that.
Next question here from Lesa K. Diane. Hi, is there a way to bookmark lessons in the archives? Thanks. That's a good suggestion because there's not right now.
I'm about to say, I don't even know. You have to answer that. Aren't you?
Yeah. One of the things with the way that bookmarks works, we just didn't want to clutter things up too much and just have a million ways to bookmark everything, even though it might kind of sound convenient. A lot of the times it can kind of get in the way. So that's what we had originally thought. Maybe that's something we'll add in the future though, because that sounds good. Are you kind of asking like bookmark specific live lesson maybe? I'm assuming because you're saying the archives.
Oh. Can you favorite videos in YouTube once they're...
You could go over to the YouTube version of all of these, which are on the guitarlessons.com YouTube channel, and you could totally go and save them there. At the same time, you can always just save a link in your browser. That's probably the best way to do it. So depending on the browser you have, it'll be favorites or bookmarks, and you just, like on Google Chrome, for example, you just hit the little star, and it will add it to your little bookmarks and make it easy to find. That's probably how I would recommend for now, but in the future, we'll probably add better ways to bookmark stuff like that. Okay, we actually don't have a ton of questions in here today, so only a couple more.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll. From Tech Boss, do you palm mute when you want to strum with no notes? So you may have to send in a follow-up here, but I'm wondering if he means maybe like the muted strums that you do?
Oh, I don't think so. Let's see. No. Yes, I do.
No, yes.
Yeah. Sort of. Not the same way that I do if I'm just going. So on that initial one, I muted the strings and I palm muted as I went through
Right.
the downstroke. On the upstroke, I don't think I did.
Okay.
My fingers are still kind of hanging out over the strings,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't say I'm palm muting them.
Yeah.
So a little bit on the initial downstroke and then my fingers, but not a traditional.
No, and I actually don't think it matters. I think it's just a matter of like, a lot of rock guitar stuff is not about perfect execution anyway and some of that stuff, so it's a little bit of attitude.
I do notice when I mute stuff like that, it makes a huge difference. There's a sweet spot right there for just dead. If you go up here,
You're gonna
you
start
get some
getting those
harmonics. So I usually either go up here, depending on what I'm playing, or right back towards the net. If I go here or here, I get harmonics and it just ruins the effect.
Yeah, especially depending on the key you're playing in, it can really mess you
Yeah,
up.
it can be weird.
Okay, we only got 2 more questions here, unless some more come in. But this is from Merlin606.
Hey, Merlin.
Awesome
Oh,
that
it's
you were
good
able
to
to
see
make it
you.
out.
I can make it out.
Yeah. Hi guys, awesome lesson so far. Can you please give us some tips on double stops and some other chord shapes that sound good with distortion? I need some alternatives to playing traditional power chords, or at least a way to embellish them and make them more interesting. Thanks, Merlin. I definitely got some stuff for you.
Yeah, Andrew and I were, well, I just mentioned Andrew probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was like, we should do a lesson on double stops.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to do is he's going to pick like his 3 or 4 favorite double stop licks, and I'm going to pick my 3 or 4 favorite double stop licks, and we're just going to teach them to you.
Yeah.
And like explain to you where they come from. But if you want to go ahead and start on that one,
Yeah,
I'll give my 2 cents as well.
show a few different things. So there was kind of a 2-parter. So there was the double stops and then alternatives to like power chords in
Okay.
rock music. So, and I'll just show you what I do. Now the music I play isn't necessarily like traditional rock. It's a little bit, I don't know, more like country-y rock, but let's see here. Okay. Probably don't need the reverb. Okay, so double stops, one little trick that I started doing when I was doing like learning how to do double stops is I would be playing a pentatonic scale and I would just leave one finger where it was. So like when I was playing and I wanted to play like you can go and so I would just move one finger and leave another finger where it was. And that was kind of how I always did it. Same with stuff like that. But I think it would be better if we probably got into like more double stop content in another lesson, so we could actually show you kind of in context and everything. As far as like chord shapes and alternatives, my favorite one is like the triad, the major or minor triad. I think it works so well with if someone's playing. I'll put a little bit of distortion on here. Someone's playing. Oh, I guess it's going to be different because I'm playing with open chords. But I like to do these ones. So if someone's playing. That's usually what I do, something like that, just little triads.
I got a couple of cool ones for you. One that I really like, it's a band named Jughead. They're Derek Shrinian and Ty Tabor, Matt Bissonette, and Greg Bissonette played. See, I don't know if I'm gonna hit the right chords here, but.
Oh yeah. So you play,
All it is a power chord, like a normal power chord,
and then another fifth on
and
top.
then a 2 on top. So it's a 9,
Yeah.
add 9 power chord.
That's a great one.
It's neat sounding. It's completely different color than just a regular power chord, but it's kind of moody, so choose when you use it.
I usually use it in context with like. And I add like.
That's happy sounding in that context.
Anyways, that's the only time I use that one. But that's cool.
If you don't use your D chord as a movable power chord, really think about doing that because it opens a lot of doors for using power chords, but having them in like a different space, higher up, a higher voicing. So just like you moved your E, your A, you could do the same thing with your D. And I do this a lot when I'm playing with an acoustic, another electric or piano player. So.
Nice.
So instead of playing that another guitar player might be playing, I'll just play that. And just use your D string to find out what chord you're playing. So D, E, F, G.
Yeah.
As far as double stops, I don't know if this will pertain to you as much because it's thirds. major and minor thirds, and you're talking about a rock context, but you're not playing any other notes, so it might not be as dissonant as you would think, or as kind of clumpy sounding. So that's all that is the root and the third out of this E bar chord shape. And all you do is walk up each chord. I know you've been studying keys, Marlo, so this is a great way to work on those keys for the day. So you could be like G, 2 chord in the key of A is A minor. And all you did was take that root third, move it up 1 whole step, and then lower the third because A is a minor chord. Then go to the 3 chord in G, which is a B, minor, C major, and I'm thinking about my high E string for the reference for the root notes. D, E minor, F sharp diminished, which we don't have to worry about flatting the 5th. If we did, we'd be right there, and then back to G. But that's a great way to drill your keys too, as a side note.
Now, are you also the other way around? This is a random question. Are those sixths?
You can think about them as either major thirds, or minor sixth, or minor thirds and major sixths. It doesn't matter. I think about them as thirds.
Okay, interesting. I was just curious. And one other thing, because I just remembered, we're going to be doing a lesson on it next month about octaves, but you can do that in a rhythm guitar context. It works really well. Nate, if you just play a progression.
Yeah, that's a good what chord.
Just do one and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
That adds a lot of texture and kind of fills things out.
And all I'm doing, again, I'll talk about this in a future live lesson where we'll actually get into it, but all I'm doing is I'm just playing the root and the root, an octave up, and that's it. And it's just a shape that you can move anywhere. You don't have to adjust for major or minor thirds at all. It's kind of like a power chord in that way. Okay, now we got a bunch of questions rolling in. Great.
All right. I like
this is from Paul59. Hi guys, what would you guys consider to be a good first electric guitar to learn on? I went to look at some and there were so many different styles, shapes, brands. It was really quite overwhelming, no doubt. That is so true.
Yeah, it's tough to say. It depends how much you want to spend, number one. Number two, it depends what kind of music you like, what kind of music you're shooting for. I'll just rattle some things off and you can too, Andrew. If you want to strat like a thinner, not in a bad way, just a thinner, brighter sound, I would go with the classic Vibe Squire strat, and that's if you're on a budget. If you're not on a budget, get whatever strat you want. Get the most expensive thing you can afford. Schecter guitars are really good for the money.
They're a little bit more like on the modern,
on the metal side. Yeah, the modern side.
Modern metal kind of stuff.
Just a chunky. Gretches they're making some really good Gretches for around $400 or $500.
The Electromatic series.
Depends on what kind of music you like. Of course, anything like Les Paul oriented, like Epiphone.
Yeah, like Gretsch is gonna give you kind of like the jangly, not directly like the Beatles sound, but it's very much that way. The pickups are quite they're quite bright for humbuckers even. But I love Strats. I think that they're very diverse.
Yeah.
But they're not like a rock guitar, so they're not for everybody. So it really depends. If there's like some artists you can think of where it's like, oh, I want a guitar that kind of sounds like this, that's a good way to look at it. Because if you think about blues, it's like you could have, Stevie Ray Vaughan, right? But then you could have Joe Bonamassa. And it's like they're very different tones.
Yeah. Well,
Les Paul, Strat. Yeah. And I'm trying to think if there's any others.
I can't. It escapes me. I can't think of it. Yeah, maybe send a follow-up question if you want to. Tell us about how much you want to spend and what kind of music you're into, who you like to listen to.
Yeah, that would be a good way to do it. Or we can always answer it on the forums later if you want to make a post.
I want to do a live lesson on how to buy used guitars or how to buy guitars in general.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you stories, man. I worked at a music store for 5 years. It was one of the heaviest traffic music stores in the country. And we had so many shady people coming in wanting to sell us guitars. It was crazy. So like you learn really quick. You're like a detective.
Oh yeah. So. There's a lot of fakes out there. A lot of fakes.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that steal guitars too and be like, what did you give me for this?
Side note, did you guys ever see that video of the guy who walked into Guitar Center and he put his guitar down his pants?
I've seen somebody
tried
do
to
that.
walk out.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe it.
He deserved to take that guitar in my books.
Yeah. I saw a guy one time while you were getting that up. I saw a guy open our front door and try to reach around and take a guitar off the hook on the wall. I was like, what are you doing? Caught him though.
Brutal.
Got him.
Brutal. Okay. Next one here from S. Williams 2549. For a Gibson, have you tried out a string butler accessory to help with tuning? I've heard about them, but I have not bought one yet.
I don't think I've heard of
know what?
those.
I'm just gonna
Well,
look it
I have heard really good things about what's the new tuning system for Gibsons? Is it G-Force or is that something else?
The G-Force is the one that goes on the back that does
Yeah.
it manually.
I've heard the newest ones are really good.
Because the old ones,
When the robots came out, they were they broke all
that's
the time.
bad
And they were
news.
pretty bad.
Yeah. And it would like, you'd go and you'd try and tune it and it would put you not in tune and then you try and adjust it and then it would keep putting you out. Some good times.
But the new ones are.
I've heard really good things about those too if you like those. So what it looks
does
like
this
it
thing?
does, okay, yeah. So it basically works like a string tree. So what it will do is if I hold my guitar like this, is it brings up further, the strings will come, instead of angling off the nut, they come straight up. My issue with that is I don't like the way it looks aesthetically. But
I wouldn't care.
For some people they wouldn't care.
No, that's the first I've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably solve your issue. At the same time, so would like a properly cut nut. It would honestly do something similar, but this would like really solve it.
I literally took the G string slot for this Les Paul. Took a D string, old D string, and just went back and forth on the back part of the nut until it freed it up, and it helped a lot.
Good to know. Yep. I just saw Paul just posted in chat here. He was thinking a Squire Strat. The important thing is there's many different series of Squires, and again, they also range in budget. But the Classic Vibe series, they're based on 50s and 60s instruments, and they are so good for the money. I actually have a Classic Vibe bass. I think I paid like $250 or $300 for it, and like Canadian. So that would be like.
Do they do
$200
vintage modified strats too, or is that something separate? Just for
Vintage
bass?
modified, I don't know if they do a Strat anymore. I think they might do some other stuff.
It's kind of the same though, as far as
Similar,
the quality.
yeah,
That's the bass I have too.
but they are modified, so that they're not going to be quite as like close to the old school specs, which is what I liked about the Classic Vibe. It's like if you get the Telly, it's got like the old school style saddles, stuff like that. They're great instruments for the price. I can't recommend them enough.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much stuff I buy and sell on Craigslist either. I'm a single guy though. Like I don't have to worry about somebody coming to my house yet.
Totally, yeah. You hear some horror stories. I've done a ton of Craigslist, especially with I do it a lot with pedals. Yeah. This was a Craigslist find actually, so it could be fake. Maybe that's why it won't stay in tune, or that's the sign of a real Les Paul that it won't stay in tune. Okay, next one here from CJ Fowler.
Oh, hey CJ.
I think that's Connie, and I think she just won Student of the Week this week. I'm working on the riffs in the Afterlife on my acoustic, but I'm having trouble getting a lot of power and volume. The riffs look so easy when Nate does them, or on the electric guitar. Do I need to lift my finger higher off the fretboard, or is it just a matter of time? I'm getting them, but they are not very loud.
It's just a matter of time. That's my best answer. Yeah, I know what you mean. Probably on the. I'm trying to remember the song in my head. I can't quite remember after. Yeah. I think there's a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs on an acoustic with finger-style stuff. So you have to put some extra. I don't think you necessarily have to do it harder. You have to get some more velocity in there. Like, So maybe take a little bit of time, and instead of working on the song, just work on those riffs, like 5 or 10 minutes a day, and then work on the song, and that'll start to build the little bit more extra strength you need in your hand to pull that off, and it'll give you a way to kind of hone in your technique to get the velocity you need to play those notes and have them ring out. But that's quite normal for you to have that problem on something like that.
Yeah, I agree. And then she did have a follow-up question, which is also going to press even harder. And I think it's velocity is what it's completely related to. Getting the hammer-ons and the pull-offs and stuff down, it's really like you end up getting to a point where the muscle memory, you don't really even have to think about it, and you can kind of find that perfect thing. And so it just kind of comes from like spending a lot of time doing it, I found. 2 more questions here. This is a double part one actually. This is from Mark Knopfler. What are the best pedals for rock other than distortion? Now, this is something that I actually wanted to talk about a little bit because it's actually important if you are playing rhythm guitar to not have too many other effects going on, in my opinion. Now, some people would totally disagree, but I don't think delay or maybe a little bit of reverb, but really reverb, those being the main ones, like chorus and stuff like that, I really don't think that they work that well for most rock stuff, right?
What do you have on your pedal board that's on when you're playing like the rhythm parts?
Yeah, basically like I just stacked 2 overdrives, and that's all it was. What about you?
I had the gain on my virtual amp like on half,
Yeah,
and then like just an overdrive pedal and a little bit of reverb. That's it.
yeah, I like.
Which I probably shouldn't have had the reverb on there.
Yeah, like the amount of reverb I would have is say like, and that's even a little much for this style of music. But that's normally what I would have on my, and all it does is I find it like slides you in with other instruments a little bit better, that little bit of reverb. But I would stay away from delay unless it's a little bit of slapback maybe, which is like really fast, like da-da, da-da.
It depends. It depends on the specific style of rhythm guitar you're doing. If you talk about AC/DC, yeah, stay away from it. I think, but like if I'm doing some more progressive or ambient stuff, I'll put a lot of delay on.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it's gonna vary a lot because rock is such a broad genre. It really is. And then also once you step into lead guitar, I think a lot changes. Personally, I don't like any effects on my lead guitar. I find that I hide behind it too much, and it kind of forces me to do, like I want to be a little bit more exposed, so I just have that tiny bit of reverb, and I try and get by that way. Usually you want a little bit more gain for lead stuff to get a little more sustain, I find. And then at the same time, delay, honestly, everybody puts delay on their lead guitar, and it's like an iconic sound, right?
It just makes it bigger sounding.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna do is tell you my like minimum rock gig pedal board.
Yeah,
and you can do the same if you want.
Okay, yeah.
Volume pedal, tuner, at least 2 overdrives,
Okay.
or a boost, depending on what context. Oftentimes I'll use my second overdrive pedal for a boost, and a delay pedal. That's it. And a lot of times I'll use the reverb on my amp if I want it on. But that's it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I can do a gig with 1 pedal. Other than
I
a tuner.
can, but I don't want to.
And it's this one here, which I actually never have on my pedal board, but what it allows me to do, I don't know how it's gonna sound with these pickups, but it allows me to do, oh, my tuner's on. So it allows me to do everything with my volume
The
knob.
only guitar that I have that I like using my volume knob on is my Tele because of its location.
Ah, yeah.
I don't know why.
I got into a big habit of using that instead of a volume pedal. It's paid off, and I sometimes miss having a volume pedal for some stuff.
You took a mortgage out on a volume pedal?
Wait, what did I say?
You said it's paid off. But
Okay. Yeah, but I gotta be paying attention to my words a little bit more. But you can get a lot of tones out of your volume knob, and just one good distortion. Now that's a fuzz pedal, and it's a very specific type. It uses a germanium transistor, which allows you to have like this perfect roll off of gain and still keep a lot of treble, which is very cool. Anyways, we could just go down this rabbit hole forever. Follow-up question: pedals for echo sounds.
I use a TC Electronics flashback. It's economical. It sounds good. What can you say?
Yeah,
That's not the one I would, if I was a millionaire, I would have.
If you were a millionaire, what would you have?
a Strymon.
Timeline?
Yeah.
The big
big
boy.
one? Yeah.
Big boy. Okay. The MXR Carbon Copy
That's a really good one too.
is a great delay pedal. It's very
Very simple.
yeah. It's very simple. It's only got kind of 1 sound and 3 controls and like a little modulation button, but it's a lot darker sounding. So it's really good for
Analog-y.
if you don't want like. There's like the U2 sound, like the Edge, has like that very glassy digital
Digitalis,
delay,
yeah.
right? And the TC Electronics does a much better job of that. But if you want like warm analog delay, is what we call it, the Carbon Copy.
I don't think you can go wrong with either of those, especially for the money.
No. My favorite delay pedal, though, is the Strymon El Capistan, which I like.
I really like that one too. It's a lot simpler than the Timeline. And what was it? I like Boss DD3 too.
Oh.
I really like that pedal.
DD3 and the DD5 is actually really good as well. But the DD3 is like the one that people kind of swear by.
Yeah.
For digital delay, that's a great one. Okay, we got one last question here. Boaldenad, you guys mentioned triads a lot. Is there a main lesson to start getting those down? I don't think so.
Don't think it's on the list. I know I have it on the next 20 or so courses to be filmed for the site. but not yet. If you have access to the guitar system, it is in there. But the cool thing about triads is if you know like your basic bar chords, you already know all your triads. You just don't know that you know them yet. I'll show you why. It's a G major chord, right? Let me clean this up. All a triad are the 3 notes in a major chord. In this case, we're playing a G chord with the E shape, so it's G, B, and D. Now, when you learn your triads, you usually learn a root position triad, which is with the root note in the bottom. You learn a first inversion with the 3rd in the bottom, and you learn a second inversion with the 5th in the bottom. Now, for example, there's a root position triad right here hidden in this shape. Pinky, middle finger, index finger on the B. All it is G, B, and D, 1, 3, 5. Now, there's also a second inversion triad hidden right here, this E shape. Root, 3rd, 5th in the bottom. And there's a first inversion one hidden right here in this shape. Root, 3rd, 5th. So, you can move those anywhere. That's just a quick little kind of synopsis for you. But it's a lot, if you know your basic chords, it's a lot more conceptual, and then you have to actually get into and dig into playing music with your triads, and then you can be like, oh, the whole fretboard just unlocks in a new way. And that's how we're going to focus on it when we get to those courses. There's going to probably between 3 and 5 courses on triads in the members area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the way I would look at it, is the same way you just think of a bar chord.
It's just pieces.
Right in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You're basically learning what all the notes are in your basic chord shapes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, it looks like that is it for questions. We were going to end on a little jam,
Pajamas.
but I don't remember what it was.
I'll just play the rhythm. You can play the lead.
Okay, I'll try and trade off with you. We'll see what happens.
1, 2, 3, 4.